Thank you for being here today. I will be speaking in English. As you might know, Bedër University takes pride in having international students as well. Unfortunately, they might not have been able to understand your speeches because they were in Albanian, but we'll make sure, and I hope during the workshop they will be able to figure out, while communicating with students from the other theologies, the main message of the verses in Bible and in Quran as well. Professor Çinari, he went a little bit through the history of anthropology and, how humans have been exploiting the earth in order to take advantage of the goodness given by God. And Don Simo spoke about Laudato Si, which is a very valuable speech from Papa Francesco. I will be shortly summarizing what Islam's perspective about environmental crisis is and what is our job as Muslims and then as humans here on earth. Yes, it was mentioned during the speech from the leaders that the environmental crisis is not only an economical and political issue, that religion, and it has been recognized recently because, as the professor mentioned, there was a club since the 1700s, regarding this issue. But it has been recognized recently that religions have a lot to offer in order to help with the environmental crisis. The Islamic perspectives offers a holistic framework which connects the belief, the ethics, and nature. Of course, when we think of religion, and especially Islam, we mostly focus on our relationship with God, praying, obeying to God, but all of this in terms of worship. Sometimes we might skip this very important aspect of connecting with God through the creation of God. There is one aspect in Islam which is called Tawheed, which means the oneness of God, that all people should declare that there is only one God who is the creator of everything. But this sentence alone is incomplete if we do not extend it to more philosophical thought. When we say that God is the creator, we are not the only creatures, of course, and there are other creations around us and where we live, and all the other galaxies are all work of God. If all creation comes from a single divine source, which is God, then everything is interconnected, which means we depend on these other creations, and these other creations depend on us. Humans, animals, ecosystems, we're not separate entities, but we are part of the whole. From this perspective, environmental harm is not just physical damage, it is a disruption of a divinely unified system. Now, building on this, the representative from the Muslim community mentioned the concept of mizan, which means balance. And we all know that in order to be in balance, the two sides should be balanced. And that's also the physical and the spiritual side should also be balanced. God in the Quran expresses in many verses, especially in the Surah Rahman, how He has created everything in its balance and warns believers not to transgress this balance. First, it raises an awareness that everything is created perfectly, not only in the outer world, but also inside our body. When we transgress and when we try to disrupt the balance, then it's like a domino effect. We make one little change, which we think might be beneficial maybe, or for our own advantage, and then it creates a domino effect. Everything changes because God has created it in balance and we need to protect that balance. Also, when thinking about human body, right, everything is in balance. Our blood pressure, right? If we eat something that will disrupt this blood pressure, or what will happen? the balance is ruined, and then problems will arise. The same thing comes also in our environment, in the place where we live. Of course, God has sent us as a steward, and in Islam this term is called Khalifa. A steward. What is a steward? Is someone who protects, as you mentioned. But how do we protect? Or how is this understood in Islam? Are we protectors and to act upon our own choices? Or do we protect in order to keep the balance? We are trusted, and it's called an amana. We are trusted to keep the balance and the order that God has created. And when we fail to do so, we have also failed to obey God. But how do we carry this responsibility in everyday life? And here comes the term and the concept of akhlaq, which is ethical conduct. In everything that we do and in everything that we say, we reflect God's words. And when our actions and our words get in conflict with each other, so they do not represent each other, then we have ruined the balance and we are not conducting in an ethical way. Climate responsibility in Islam is not limited to policy or activism. It is rooted in character. This is what our religion teaches us. In every single action, from not wasting water even from a river, to not overfilling our stomach, to not exceeding consumption, to be fulfilled with minimal things, because we do believe we are created for the infinite world. And we are only travelers here in this world, and we should respect what is given to us. Take from it, use it, but do not exploit it. Some contemporary Muslim thinkers, like Sayyid Hussein Nasser, argue that the ecological crisis we face today is at its core a spiritual crisis. Modern society often views nature as something separate from us, something to be used rather than understood. When nature is stripped of its spiritual significance, it becomes easier to exploit. And I would like to give you an example. It might be maybe to make it more understandable. I have here 2 pens. I could use them both for writing. I need this pencil, and I go to the store and I buy this pencil to use it for my own needs, to take notes today here at this symposium. And I use it for my own needs. But on the other hand, I have this pencil or pen, which is a gift from my best friend. She gifted it to me for my birthday. So I use it to write and to take notes, but it also carries a very spiritual connection, right? It's a gift from someone that I love. In the same way, the nature and whatever surrounds us is a gift from God and is actually a sign from God. So when we look at it and strip it from the spiritual meaning, we tend to exploit it. But when we look at it as something that God has created with us and for us, because nature and the whole world is a creation of God, then we tend to pay more attention and go to the role of being a steward. Also, Said Nursi, a prominent scholar, described the universe as an open book, one that invites reflection and understanding. In this view, engaging with nature is not only a scientific activity, but also a spiritual one. In many verses in Quran, God asks to see the signs of His creation and ponder upon them. So whatever we see are signs of the creation that bring us closer to God. So in order to summarize, what I just mentioned, this holistic framework is composed of these 4 principles. Tawheed, the unity of all creation. We all come from the same creation and we are part of this whole. The balance in creation, God has created everything in balance, and here comes our role as steward, as protector, to keep this balance, and this God-given duty as a steward and as a vicegerent comes with accountability and responsibility as well. When someone gives you a duty and tells it's your duty to take care of organizing this symposium, you're also accountable for arranging it and its organization in the best way. In the same way, when we are appointed stewards here on earth, like a human authority here on earth, we will be held accountable. And as stewards, it's our duty to behave with akhlaq, to conduct in an ethical way in everyday life. Now, these concepts from a coherent framework that addresses environmental issues not only at the level of action, but also at the level of worldview, how we see our connection with the other creatures. In conclusion, the Islamic perspective does not claim to offer the only solution to the environmental crisis. We heard from the other guests the biblical passages and the Pope's Laudato Si speech. However, it provides a deeply integrated vision, one that reminds us that caring for Earth is not separate from our spiritual and ethical responsibilities. Perhaps the most important takeaway is this: the environmental crisis is not only out there in the world, but also within us, in our values, our behaviors, and our understanding of our place in the universe. And I hope, and especially to my Islamic science students who are here today, that you will have a more ethical conduct when performing everyday actions which might seem insignificant, because everything we do is an act of worship when you think that we're doing it for God and obeying God. Thank you all.